so we should get started. We really don't have a lot for you today. A couple things that we do want to talk about. Nothing earth-shattering, I don't think. Two things from the support team that we'd like to bring up. One is we're going to be doing sort of one-on-one help in world on this region, in the center of the region. There won't always be somebody there because we're all volunteers. But you've got a problem, you can stop by and see what's going on. There's a slurl to the center of the region, basically, the area where we'll be doing it. Hopefully, if you've got an issue you want to come by, you can come by and talk to some people, see what's happening, and hopefully get your problems resolved. We all do support in slightly different ways. We've got people on the team who do not like helping out in IMs, and they're all volunteers, folks. They do a very tough job here in Second Life, as far as I'm concerned, and they do it well. So we can't really, since we don't pay them, we don't exactly feel we have the right to say, okay, you have a shift from such and such to such and such. So it's going to be a matter of who's available. Well, you'll get your regular pay, Kim. You know that 0 lindens that we pay every week? And you'll still get that. And you'll still get your raises where we double or give you a 50% increase. Oh, you didn't hear about the bonus for being here? You'll have to talk to Jess about that. But yeah, so that's one of the things we wanted to mention. Center of the region, you can come by. People will be on voice. Some will use voice, some will just use text. Triple J. So I'd like you all to sort of spread the word, you know, that quite often there will be people available down at ground level on the center island here. Come on out. Not my department, Vatashi. We do have one thing in particular that I wanted to bring up today. And it's sort of a touchy subject. We want to point out to you how to know if somebody is officially on the team. We've had a couple of complaints from some users who so-and-so, I'm not going to mention names, but so-and-so is passing themselves off as a Firestorm advisor. And, you know, IMing people in the group chat, things like that. It's quite simple to find out if somebody is officially on the team. There's multiple ways you can do it. You can check our wiki page. You can look on our webpage. And even simpler, you can simply open somebody's profile. Anybody that's on the team will be listed as being on the team in the same area as their payment info on file. You can check anybody on the stage here, check our profiles. You'll see that we're on the team. Now, the reason this is if you actually got the login screen. So, the reason this is a touchy subject is our group chat is a community thing. A lot of times we'll have people come in and say, is there anybody from the team around to answer a question? Quite frankly, just ask your question. If there's somebody around that knows the answer, they'll give it to you. it's not just the official team members that know stuff. A lot of you help out in the group on occasion, and you do great work, and we greatly appreciate it. It makes our lives a lot simpler. What we want to stay away from is people putting themselves out as being part of the team when they're actually not. Does that make sense to y'all?
I've got a couple things to add, if that's okay, Ed.
Sure. Go ahead.
So one of them is just a clarification, just to make sure everybody knows where to look when they're checking profiles to see who is on the team. First off, it needs to be in the legacy style of profiles. If you're using web profiles, you're not going to be seeing what legacy profile users are seeing. If you're not sure which one you're using, open up your preferences, go to the General tab, and check the very upper right item where it says Extras, use web profiles by default. If that is checked, then you're not going to be able to see the part that we're talking about right now. So you might want to temporarily uncheck that. Then go ahead and open up the profile of anybody on the team, myself or Ed. You can open up Tanya's, although hers will say something different. Or anybody else in this room who has a Firestorm support tag right now, and a few people who don't. So you're looking under where it says Account, and then, for example, under Mine, you'll see Resident, Payment Info Used, and then Firestorm Support. And that is where you're looking. And as a point of comparison, go ahead and open up Tanya's, and you'll see that hers says Firestorm Developer, where mine would say Firestorm Support. So that is where you're looking to. That is the absolute most reliable spot to find out whether somebody is on support or development team for Firestorm. Again, that's not going to be visible if you're using the web profile style, which, in case it's ambiguous, you can use web profiles in World. That does not just refer to using a profile in your web browser. But yeah, if you're using the legacy profile. And yeah, that's the other thing, was I just wanted to emphasize what Ed was saying, that we love it when people who are not on the Kim is correct. You're only going to be able to see that if you are currently on Storm Viewer or for some reason Phoenix. So if you're on any other viewer, you're not going to be seeing that in profiles at all. So in that case, you're going to want to fall back on our roles in the Firestorm Support English group. You can open up the group, head to group info, and check to see who exactly is in a mod role in there, or other roles other than everyone. And that should help you out. But yes, we love it when people who aren't on the team help out. In fact, that's how we find new helpful people. But sometimes there are times when you want to know that when you want to have an extra level of certainty about what's going on, because we do communicate within the group. That is one of the main advantages that people who are on the team have over people who are not on the team. So if there's something that we personally don't know, we have immediate and vast access to somebody else who may be able to help us out. So when you're talking to somebody on the team, you may actually be talking to the entire team, or at least anyone who's available in a respect. So although we will not discount the knowledge and the interest in helping that people who aren't members of the team have, there are some times when you may want to be certain of or have questions that would be more appropriate for somebody who's on the team. And that is one of the reasons that it is useful to know who's who. And I think that's my ramble for the moment. Back to you, Ed.
Thank you for that clarification, Lena. My PC doesn't want to belong.
Now, while you're doing that, Ed, I'm going to throw out a thought here. Works better if I keep my finger on the button in the right place. I about 3 months ago took an RL job, and as it turns out, doing technical support. And I have gotten a whole new appreciation for our support team. Just how difficult the job can be, and they do it just because they want to and for free. I've always been a real supporter of the support team, and now even more so. These folks are vastly underappreciated.
Well, thank you for that, Tanya. I honestly think our support team does a damn fine job. And it's not always easy. Communication in text is not always clear. What you call a window, we might call a floater. Terminology makes a big difference as well. Or a tab. Some people call the buttons, the toolbar buttons, tabs. It's an interesting job. It truly is interesting. As for what's happening, I know y'all want to know. Y'all have one question. When's the next release coming out, right? I knew that one would come up. I'm going to answer that one right now. When it's ready. Yeah, you don't like the answer, do you? Presently, we're waiting for a bunch of code from Linden Lab. They're testing a new, what's called AIS3. It's a new some changes to the inventory system. Some of us will be doing some testing. Linden Lab's going to have a pylon. We don't have the full code available yet, so we can't test it without using their viewer. Some of us will be on the Linden Lab viewer to run a test under pylon. Others will be on one of our latest nightly builds or a beta build. Because we do not expect to have a release out. We might, but we can't count on it when this goes live. It shouldn't, Katie. It's designed to improve inventory loading and cut down on network lag, if I remember correctly. However, we will have some of our people out there testing on a build without the AIS3 code, just to find out what sort of problems we're going to experience when that goes live and we don't have a release out with the code in it. What else do we have going, folks? Other than waiting for code from Linden Lab. Tanya?
That's pretty much it. One thing that I want to start playing with. I know that the fitted mesh project has gotten some press play. One of the things that Oz came out with this past week was a request for people to try dropping in some of the fitted mesh stuff into existing viewers. If you have somebody who's wearing something made for the new fitted mesh, some of the things, depending on how it's made, it could be that some of the mesh looks like it stretches off towards the southwest corner of the region. And just, really looks kind of bad. Well, there's a way to fix that, we think. And not just for new viewers that do fitted mesh, but existing viewers as well. That's what that is. And so I'll be looking at, I wanted people to see if there was a way to easily retrofit that into existing viewers. As it turns out, basically what you have to do is just replace 2 files. And I'm going to be looking at seeing what it will take to do that for, for the existing Firestorm builds. Probably just 4.4.2 and the 4.5.1 beta. No promises yet, but the fitted mesh project is still a ways off. I don't think they've released any source code anyway. So I take that back. They have to. That's where we're getting the 2 files involved. There's a repository out in Bitbucket, but even so, we couldn't have that until it's time for our next release, which, as Ed said, will happen only when it's ready. So, in the meantime, we need to provide something so people can see stuff made with fitted mesh as it was intended to be seen. So watch this space. It should be pretty easy to do, but it's more a matter of testing it and making sure that the process to drop the files in works, and that it doesn't break anything else in the viewer or in your Second Life experience.
I like the way you said that. It's just 2 files.
Yeah, it's a one-line fix.
So I don't think there was anything else we really wanted to bring up here. In particular, no earth-shaking news for y'all. Unless Letter, Tanya, or somebody else on the team has something. I'll pause for...
Nothing in particular.
That's about... and no KT, I don't. That's something... I know that there are some out there. I need to lay hands on one myself for testing purposes. So I'll probably be looking around trying to find something along those lines myself.
So I guess now it's... you got questions, folks, that you want answered? We can give it a go. Throw your questions out there and we'll see what we can do to answer them.
Yeah, it's pretty dismal. Basically, until people have viewers capable of rendering fitted mesh properly, it's not going to be very useful.
Jay, do you mean for avatar imposters? No.
Yeah, that's a rendering issue, and basically the reason that avatar imposters are handled the way they are is because it makes the assumption that those closest to you are the ones that need to be seen in the greatest detail, and as they get further away from you, you're not going to see the details anyway. So avatar imposters can work for.
And just to be clear, it's not the avatars nearest to you. It's the ones closest to your camera. So if you were to focus your camera on somebody in the back of the class, instead of those right around you, and you had your avatar imposter set to 3, they would be fully rendered in 3D.
So you can still look at whoever you want in full detail. You just have to move your camera to do it.
And Kukana, that's a tough one. Some people have no problems with that. Other people, it's a problem every time. I don't know if there is a solution to that, honestly, because it varies wildly from one person to the other. KT, avatar imposters just mean that they're not rendered in full 3D. That's all it means. Which is actually a lot easier on your computer. That's what it was designed to do, is cut down on client-side lag.
They are still rendered, but since they are rendered in such little detail, they aren't nearly as demanding on your GPU as a fully rendered avatar is. All it does is cut down on the detail, and that can give you a performance break.
And KT, and as to whether they're rendered by the GPU or the CPU, well, it depends on a couple of things. Mainly your system and your settings. There's no definitive answer.
Classes?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, maybe you can sneak in a plug for the classes while we're waiting on Unai to enter her question.
Sure. How many of you have come out to the classes? Hands up. Come on. Or better yet, I guess the better question would be, how many of you have not come out to the classes? I'd like to know why you don't come out to classes, quite honestly. Anyway, if you ask people that have come out to the classes, you'll find that they're informative. We try to have some fun at them. Oh, looks like we lost Yanai. No excuse, Jay. You've come out to the questions. You've come out to the classes, so. I highly recommend them. Another thing you can do is drop by the classroom and pick up the class notes. Go through the class notes. And we do a short open Q&A after each of our classes. Sometimes it's really short. Sometimes 10 minutes after the class, everybody's gone. Other times, well, can you say a couple hours? It depends on how many people are there and the questions being asked. How often are our classes? Yeah, pretty much every day. Sometimes twice a day. Days when we don't have classes, maybe 2 or 3 times a month we don't have a class, Letta?
They're supposed to be, well, they're generally every day because when I schedule, there's either Ed or I is going to be teaching each day, and then we've got a couple of other teachers who teach on top of that. And the classes have start times ranging from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. So if you see the schedule and nothing fits in at that point in time, the next time the schedule is updated, if there's any point in time within that 12-hour range that will work for you, then you can expect something to come around that will be at the appropriate time for you in the future. They bounce around. They are never held. If one class is held at one time one week, it will not be at the same time the next week, and usually not on the same day. So that they're moved around as much as possible, so that eventually they will land at a good time for almost anyone, unless, of course, you are never available during that 12-hour period. But since you all are here right now, and it is 8:37 a.m. PST, I can guarantee that at some point in time, you'll be able to make it to an 8 a.m. Saturday class.
Okay. I'm being tempted to rant here. People say lag. You're laggy. What kind of lag are you experiencing? Lag is not something simple. It really isn't, folks. I mean, there are, discounting chat lag. You can experience client-side lag, you can experience network lag, and you can experience server-side lag. We do a class on lag. It's actually combined with another small class about quick press. Not rendered avatars are not always server-side lag, KT. No TP possible a lot of times is network lag, not the server. Avatars not rendering a lot of times is client-side. Sometimes it's network, sometimes it's server-side. Lag is one of those things that is very complicated. Okay, I'll give a simple example. So let's talk about server-side lag for just a minute. How many of you know the biggest reason for server-side lag in Second Life? What's your guesses? I'm curious. Wrong, KT. It's not server-side lag. Texture sizes are client-side. Scripts, not number one, Bruno. Although it can be. Here's where it starts to get really interesting. People moving. Physics. Server-side physics. Okay? Not avatar physics, not your bouncing bits, but actual movement. Is the primary, generally speaking, cause of lag. If your physics lag on a region gets too high, scripts will simply stop working. Now, just to confuse the issue, if you go to a region that's heavily scripted and there's only 2 avatars on it, then it's the scripting that's going to be causing the most lag on the region. But if you dropped 40 avatars in there and they're all running around bumping into things, the scripts will just stop running because avatar physics, avatar movement, is considered more important than scripts running. Do you want more confusion in there as well? Oh, you want more confusion? All right. Here's more confusion for you. So, you all know that there's more than one region on a server, right? Four main regions to a server, yada yada, you get the idea. So if the region that's on the same server as you is having issues, network issues, whatever, they're drawing tons of bandwidth, that can affect your region. Even though that other region that's on the same server as you might be on the other side of the grid, it can affect your region as well. So you can experience lag on a region that should be running fine. You look at the SIM statistics and everything looks fine. But the other region or regions on the same server you are having issues, they're eating tons of bandwidth, you're going to suffer.
And if they're using tons of CPU because they have lots of structures, lots of avatars, lots of physics going on, it's going to get you on your sim elsewhere elsewhere on the grid, and there's no real good way to know about that. So it's really a crapshoot. There's a lot of misinformation, a lot of old wives' tales about lag. Some of them may have been true once upon a time, but anymore, no, not really. The one that always annoys me is people blaming lag on having lots of scripts. And generally, that's not going to do it, simply because the sim, if it detects its frame rate going down, the very first thing is it throttles back the time the time allocated for script processing. That's all done in what's basically the sim's spare time. So if the sim doesn't have any spare time because it's busy processing physics, or because another sim on the same physical host is processing physics, then the script time on that sim is going to get cut back. And so you may notice that scripts don't run as efficiently, or as, well, I won't say efficiently, don't run as quickly, don't you respond as quickly. But people who say, "Oh, well, you're wearing 100 scripts. You need to cut back. You're causing lag." No, not really. Now there are some second order effects to having lots of scripts that may cause problems, but those really only kick in when you have lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of scripts. For example, I've got a pair of tennis shoes that has 520 scripts per shoe, and that's just ridiculous. I don't wear those anymore because they're no mod, and I can't strip the scripts out of them anyway. In general, scripts are not the problem that people think they are.
And on that same note, one of my favorite little rants is this. If you're basing your opinion on the number of scripts that somebody's running, chances are you're going to be yelling at somebody that's actually using up less resources on a region than somebody with less scripts. I personally have seen a person with 100 scripts on them that were using up less time on the server than somebody with 10 scripts. They had 10 times as many scripts, but they were only using 3/4 of the script time, the actual time that the script uses running on the CPU, is the bigger deal, folks. It really is. Oh, okay, it's okay. I'm not a scripter. Okay. But so I don't know all the technical details, but I know what happens. So an efficiently written script may be listening might have listeners and listen once every 30 seconds. Another one might be listening every 5 seconds. The one that's listening every 5 seconds is going to eat up more time on the server. You get the idea? So it's not necessarily the number of scripts that somebody's wearing that tells you how much of an impact they're having on the region. The other side of this that I like to rant about is this. If the region's not suffering and you're wearing 176 scripts and eating up 5 milliseconds of time and there's still 10 milliseconds of time left on that region, you're not having much of an impact. So what's the big deal?
Yeah, if the sim has idle time, then scripts are not your problem.
Here's example time again, in case anybody is uncertain about what's being talked about right now. First off, if anybody here does not yet know how to check the number of scripts and script time that you and other people are wearing, right-click your tag or that of another individual. And by the way, I'm saying tag, not the avatar itself, because if you accidentally hit something prim or mesh, then you are not going to end up with a complete script count. And locate script info in the right-click menu. You may, if it's somebody else, you're in the pie menu, you're going to have to hit more, and then script info. But I've been poking around, so here are a couple of examples. Ed and Amaya are both wearing 16 scripts. They have a different number of KB consumed, and they have a different amount of CPU time, though.
So if you look at that, if you look at those numbers, Amaya's got the same number of scripts as me. My scripts have more memory, but I'm using up less script time on the region than Amaya is. So you see why I'm saying it's not the number of scripts. It's not necessarily the amount of memory allocated to the scripts. It's the time that makes the big difference, folks. And that time will change, by the way. It goes up and down, and you're getting an average. Robin, 100 prims worth of jewelry and one wearing no jewelry. Depends. Is the jewelry set to being physical? If it's not set to being physical, it doesn't contribute to physics lag. The only kind of lag that's going to cause is client-side lag. Well, a minor amount of server lag, but really, more of it would be client-side.
And just for comparison, I'm wearing 60 scripts using 0.08 milliseconds of that. And I'm looking at the sim statistics. And right now the sim has 7.88 milliseconds of script time and about 8 milliseconds of spare time. Spare time is when the sim is doing nothing, which means that it has that much headroom to run more scripts. So right now, whatever lag issues we may be having here are not caused by script.
Okay, so if we clarified and confused you a little bit about lag, well, Letta's got more. Go, Letta.
I was just going to add, since we've got it, since we may have people new to the art of script counting, just a quick FYI, when you do that script count thing, it will show up in nearby chat, but only to you. It's not going to show up to anybody else, so you can script count to your heart's content, and nobody else will know that you're being nosy about their scripts. You can also do it through the radar. If you've got nearby avatars open, you can right-click the name in the radar and select script info there too. And also I want to direct folks' attention to what Shakot put into chat, which is the other way of finding scripts on your own avatar. If you go to World About Land, or if you have the location information in your menu bar, you can just click that. But it's World Parcel Details is what it's listed as in there, although it shows up with About Land in the at the top of the floater. Script button at the bottom. Script info at the bottom, and then click Avatar at the top. And then you'll get a list of any scripted items that you are wearing. Now, this view will not tell you what number of scripts you have on. It only includes the yes, and what Tech and Ed just said. If script count does not work for you, 99% of the time it's going to be your bridge either not being enabled or not being worn, or simply working at some point. So recreate your bridge, avatar menu, avatar health, recreate LSL bridge, and that should get your script count working again. But yes, that script information window out of About Land will give you a list of the scripts with an indication. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Tech, actually. I don't know what makes the difference. But some people have no problem recreating their bridge on scripted land. It used to be that you couldn't, but I think something changed. Duron, it's actually called Parcel Details. Parcel Details is the same as About Land. It's at Parcel Details in the menu, and it's About Land when the window's open.
I just checked out myself and discovered I'm wearing a bunch of attachments that have scripts that I didn't know were scripted. I mean, I have to poke at them.
So you got the idea now, folks, why lag is such a big thing for me, and I rant about it at pretty much any opportunity.
Oh, Ed, you just like ranting.
Well, I'd prefer to not rant that everybody knew it, but, the rants work to educate people. That's sort of my thing here in Second Life, I think.
And Tech's example is another good one because his CPU time is higher than either of the people who we saw who are wearing 16 scripts, and he's wearing only 5.
You got it, Kim. So, I have a question for y'all. Time to log in. Duron, that's generally related to the network or what's going on your computer, and that's not a simple one to diagnose, honestly. It really isn't. I could ask you all sorts of things. Go ahead.
Just in case people are getting confused here, there are lots of things in Second Life that may sound simple but really aren't, and that's because there are lots and lots and lots of moving parts to Second Life as a whole. The viewer, the asset servers, the login servers, the sim host, the networks, on and on and on and on and on, and so they all interact. They all cause each other issues. They all give each other fits. And tracking down the cause of a problem is often an exercise in, I guess, I won't say archaeology, but it's certainly takes a lot of detective work at times.
Quite frankly, folks, Second Life's so complicated, I'm surprised it works at all, let alone as well as it does. And Duran, things like have you whitelisted the viewer in your antivirus and your firewall? All the executables. Silly things like that can make a difference. Have you whitelisted it though? You've allowed it as an exception. All the executables for any of the scans that are running. For example, we had one user who their antivirus scan was scanning all DLL events as they happened. His real-time scanning was sent to scan all DLL events.
Ooh.
Killed his frame rate in Second Life. Absolutely killed it. He whitelisted everything in the viewer for that scan, and his problem went away. You know, and just to throw another plug-in for the classes, we actually teach that in our basic troubleshooting class. Tech, do you have voice here today?
Still troubleshooting because of I was overloading my Wi-Fi connection, and I think I finally downloaded everything. So I think it be working pretty good now.
Yeah, no, it's breaking up pretty bad. You might have to type, but I'm going to throw a question out to the people here. How many Linux users are here? Anybody here use Linux? How many of you would be interested in a 64-bit build of Linux? Tech is working on that.
I see there's one out there. How many more? Come on, yell, scream.
Yeah, drop your bandwidth and press tech. That might help with your voice, honestly.
It's so funny. That's why I was been troubleshooting my Wi-Fi connection and everything else.
So, there is work being done on a 64-bit Linux, folks.
I have managed to build one.
Yeah, yeah, tech. You become ununderstandable. You basically were getting. Tech's probably on a wireless signal at the moment too. So.
It tends to go from 1 millisecond ping time to 1,000 millisecond ping time to local router.
Yeah. Reboot that router, man. Duron, that's an interesting one. Okay. Some people can run with their bandwidth turned really high. Our recommendations are generally lower because they're what work for most people. You're an exception, being able to turn your bandwidth up and getting better performance. Go ahead, Demeter. Throw it out there.
Yep, this is just like being in FSC. You don't have to wait your turn. If anybody has a question, no one is going to wait. You can just go ahead and ask it, and it'll be answered either in voice or text depending on what's going on in the conversation at the moment.
Wish that was a simple answer. Demeter, in my experience, if other people are seeing it, it's server side. If others are seeing the same attachment as well, it's something happening with the servers, be it the asset servers, most likely. If it's just you that's seeing it, I'd be suspecting either that your network or something on your client.
If it's only seen in your viewer, does a relog cure?
Too.
In my experience, 95% of the time, a relog alone will fix that. Sometimes it does not, though.
Well, next time it happens, Demeter, feel free to ask somebody from the group to come over or pop over to the center island here, if there's somebody around, and get them to look.
Yeah, this is the case of this is why you don't use Wi-Fi for Second Life.
That was actually sort of understandable.
Yeah, I switch over to one antenna, it turned out to be worse, and I switch over to a different antenna. It's just that the biggest problem with Wi-Fi, especially at truck stops and so on, is you got so many different access points and they're interfering with each other.
Interference. Wireless and interference. The two key words.
Yeah, for some reason, I think it takes a... Yeah, they'll fall apart. Right now, I'm not touching a thing with the antennas now. Yeah, I got quite a bit of equipment here for connecting to Wi-Fi's. But as far as what I was trying to say earlier about Linux 64-bit, I did manage to get a couple builds going, and I got a tester or two that's been testing it, and they've been reporting back some bugs with it. As soon as I get all the outstanding issues, the bugs with it, we should be able to release it, hopefully. But it's in the testing phase. But Linux 64-bit builds have been successfully built. It just needs to be debugged and tested.
Now,
Yeah,
the topic of... sorry, go ahead.
ahead.
I was about to shoot off on a different topic, so you go ahead and finish.
To answer Tanya's question, I've been working on that for the past 4 weeks. I think I'll drop you some info on that because I had to, in order to do that, I had to rebuild all of the Lemon Live libraries, and unfortunately, one of them I had to start from scratch. I probably have to drop you the auto build script for it.
Well, okay, so we can put those up on our server whenever we get them built good and solid, and that way people can just suck them.
Yeah, 2 of them we're going to have to redo from scratch because I borrowed a template from a couple other places to get it going. So we have to, and unfortunately they don't have a license with them. That's the problem with auto build scripts is a lot of them are missing their license files. Because I had to rebuild GTK from scratch because Lemon Labs has never released a source code to that.
Well, I thought they pretty much deprecated that combined library anyway.
Yeah, what Oz said on the list is that, well, on the jar, I mean, is that he thought the library wasn't being used, and unfortunately he got confused, like most people, on the standalone Boolean, and no, they use those pre-builds, and then Lemon Lab is still using those pre-builds. I think they're built like several years ago, and they're still using it for the Linux releases, and I don't know where the source code is for them. I asked for them, and Oz just came back with a reply that says maybe because we don't have them. Which is then how you doing your Linux builds? And I discovered that they're still using their very old build. I think from 2010. I think.
All right, so folks, take this as an object lesson. Remember what I said earlier about lots and lots of moving parts? We just heard one example of why that can be problematic.
Oh, just a little comment to Kim Kins there. I have connected to wireless louders up to a mile away. In fact, there's one particular truck stop that's located next to the cornfield, and there's a access point clear across the cornfield, which is about a mile away that I connect to.
Okay, Demeter, shoot, I was one of the people working on the materials project, so I can probably answer that question. Fire away.
And while he's typing that up, Kim Kins, usually it's just open access points, and sometimes they're home routers at the businesses that are just simply bought and set up. So, and that's a nice thing about Wi-Fi. They not only adopted a standard on it, but someone had the foresight to make sure there's no range limitations on there. I think the record for is about 100 miles, I believe.
That's not bad at all for a 2300 megahertz signal.
Yeah, and the particular bandwidth, the FCC, basically they just let it go wild because it is the exact wavelength that microwave uses, because it happens to be the ideal wavelength for water to absorb. So therefore, all the commercial interest and everything wasn't interested in that band because it could be easily affected by rain and so on.
Mask off parts of a texture when tinning it? Not sure I understand what you mean there. Yeah, okay, I see where you're getting at. Yeah, so you'd have to add another texture, the tint mask. You can, right now you can if you use a specular map, you can control what parts are reflective and to some extent what color it is. But being able to control what gets tinted by applying a color to a surface that has a texture to it, that would take another change to the asset server. I don't know that there would be a lot of that Linden Lab would see a lot of value in that. Best suggestion I can make there is to write up your proposal and then submit it to the Linden Lab Jura as a feature request, and let's see what happens with it.
And I snuck back.
Hey, Ed, there's another rant for you.
Yeah. Yeah, really. I think you can submit a bug report with a type of feature request, and then it'll get triaged to the right place. Am I correct, Ed?
You can
Run
try.
that by me again?
The procedure for making a feature request to Linden Lab these days, since there's no dedicated feature request section anymore.
Right, on the Linden Lab Jira, I think you can still set the, there's not only a report section, which now is forced to bug, but also a report type. And isn't one of the report types still feature request?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't recall seeing a feature request on their Jira.
Yeah, they only officially want
for a
bug
while.
reports, but you can create a feature request in the bugs section, and there's really no guarantee these days that they'll be interested, but it can. But yeah, you just do it in the bugs section. It's better than nothing. It's slightly more likely to get implemented than if you do nothing at all. And by slightly, I mean a lot.
You never know. A Linden developer may get an itch one weekend and decide to look at some of the feature requests and that sounds interesting.
And there you go, RJ. You've got your dot now. You should be able to hear us. No problem.
That brings me back nightmares. I remember messing with that, trying to get that damn thing to work on all our viewers.
And Primal, you're on OS 10, right?
No, he's a Windows user.
I'm sorry.
And my response to that is I don't do Windows.
I used to say that. Unfortunately, my new tech support job is Windows-based. Boy.
Oh, let me bring back some nightmares from my old, oh God, I did this many years ago. I used to answer the phones with this. Thank you for calling Piker Bell Technical Support. How may I help you?
That answered that question as to why you don't.
I think we're capable of having OS pride without flaming. I think in team we're decent about that. At least in public.
And I will point out that I am currently using the Win64 version of Firestorm because it's the only one I can get voice to work on.
And do I safely take it that you're trying to fix that, Tonya? Voice on Mac?
Well, voice on Mac works. It's just that voice on my Mac doesn't work for reasons I've never been able to figure out, and I've been poking at it for 3 years.
Voice is one of those things that's really weird. If I was on the 4.5.1 version of Firestorm, any flavor, whether it be the beta, the 64-bit Windows, or the nightlies that we have available to us, you probably would not be able to understand me, and I probably wouldn't be able to understand half of the things that are being said. Other people have no problems with it, with the new voice files. For me, they're just absolutely horrible.
Voice has been working fine for me on my new Mac, and it was working fine for me on my old Mac on the beta. The current voice problems do not seem to be related to operating system at all.
Reference earlier discussion about lots of moving parts.
And unfortunately, the voice files are closed source, so we don't have access to the source. And they're someone correct me if I'm wrong on this. I think they're only available in 32-bit, I think, but they do work on 64-bit systems.
So, Jay, you had a question, and I tried to ask you a follow-up. What's going on with this just about crashing every time a chat opens up? Are you actually crashing, or is it a lockup, or are you disconnecting? And also, what is your operating system?
For WebKit, Katie, I have no I have no suggestions. WebKit problems have been around ever since I started doing support, and it's weird.
The only suggestion anybody had was to make sure that it was whitelisted in the antivirus.
Jay, I'm getting you a Jira link because I used to have that. I was having that problem. By any chance, are you locking up when you open preferences as well? Okay, then I'm getting you this Jira link so that you can add information to it. And have your friends add to it as well. Fortunately, it doesn't seem to be a problem hitting very many people, but a few it does. I haven't had a problem with it on my new Mac, but my old one, there was an issue. However, what's curious is that up until now, it seemed to be Mac only. So it will be useful to know that it's happening on XP as well. So let me grab you this link. I have to find it first.
You clicked the wrong thing. I was just saying, yeah, you can tell it's an awesome.
Jay, here you go. Please, if you're not registered for the Jira yet, register for it and add some comments, including your system information, which you get from the help about Firestorm window. It's actually labeled as a Chewy bug, which means we got it from Linden Lab, which means it is possible they'll need to be doing the fixes. They actually did do some working on it, I guess, maybe, or something, or maybe we did, because at one point in time my lockups were 60 seconds, and then after a fix happened, they reduced to about 15, but that still feels like an eternity. So it sounds as though the common thread is actually older machines. Well, it doesn't affect me at all anymore, but no, it didn't affect me with help about Firestorm that I can recall. It was preferences and IM tabs specifically, and it didn't matter how the IM tab was opened. Whether it was incoming, outgoing, whether I opened it through contacts or friends, contacts or people panel, or through right-clicking somebody in World. It all happened the same way. And logs didn't show anything at all. In fact, they just showed a gap when it was taking place.
The fact that you're getting logged out, Jay, leads me to, if it was me that it was happening to, and that was happening, I'd be checking my network as much as humanly possible. That'd be the first place that I would start, is with my network connections. Are you on a router, Jay? Try rebooting it. Power it down completely. If it's got a battery backup, remove the battery, leave it off for a couple minutes. as well. Oh, Wi-Fi. Yeah, Wi-Fi's. We had a user. I believe this was one that Letta handled in the past. She was on wireless. She had no problems in Second Life at all. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, a student in a class, okay, all of a sudden, out of the blue, she started getting disconnected. Her Wi-Fi would just drop out about the same time every night. Took her a while to figure it out, but she finally figured out it was her neighbor was coming home and sticking his supper in the microwave. And yeah, simple as that. Her neighbor turning the microwave on interfered with her wireless signal and dropped her off. Actually, in her case, well, she just got him a new microwave for Christmas, I think.
Speaking of microwaves and Wi-Fi, a lot of your new devices that's been made within the past couple of years or a few years have been specifically designed to detect microwaves and work around it. Because microwaves, even though they emit a lot of noise in that particular bandwidth, because that's the same frequency they use to cook the food with, but it's very consistent. So a lot of these, new Wi-Fi equipment are designed to detect and work around it. However, if you happen to have an old Wi-Fi router, especially if you got one that defaults to a ID of Linksys, yeah, they haven't got the new stuff in there. Therefore, they'll be completely wiped out by microwave.
Go ahead, Ron, toss it out there. Rowan, the rule of thumb that I use for specifying a Mac, as long as it doesn't have only Intel, as long as it doesn't have Intel graphics or has something besides Intel graphics, it's great. Intel graphics, mumble. Yeah, if it's got NVIDIA, it's fine. Have at it. The very latest Intel graphics, Tankmaster Finesmith swears up and down that the very latest Intel graphics actually fail to suck. I remain unconvinced.
Actually, that is a bit of good news for Linden Labs because about 2 or 3 years ago, one of the biggest fears that Linden Labs was having was that they collect these stats, what kind of hardware that people connect to Second Life with, and their scariest statistics that they ever had was the sudden surge of all the Intel GPU chipsets that were coming out with, because everybody was buying at that time these netbooks and everything else was connecting to Second Life on them, and that gave Linden Lab a few heart attacks over that one. But thankfully, Intel has greatly improved those graphics chipsets now.
All right, so the reaction about fail to suck. How many? One of the things that I tried to push when we were first releasing Firestorm is that Firestorm is the viewer that fails to suck. And how many people have heard that? I think personally, I think we ought to publicize that more.
The problem is, Firestorm doesn't work well for everybody. How many of you are surprised to hear that? It's a simple fact.
Yeah, he's right. There are folks for whom Firestorm just doesn't work very well, and they're often surprised. People put a lot of time and effort in, and support folks put a lot of work into trying to get them to run right. And there are some that just can't, and we really have never been able to figure out why. But there's there are other viewers out there, and if Firestorm doesn't work for you, try them. We are certainly not going to hold it against you if for running something else if Firestorm doesn't work for you.
And I can take it a step further. I run two machines here. My main machine is an old Pentium D915. Okay, stop laughing, all of you that know CPUs.
What was it, Pentium what?
A Pentium D915.
Oh, I see you're a collector.
So that's my main machine. Okay, that's my more high-powered machine. Okay, I crash on Firestorm. Sometimes 2-3 times a day. Other days I don't crash at all. It's just weird. I'm on Win 7. It's got 4 gigs of RAM and it's got a GTX 260. Okay. For anybody that doesn't know what a Pentium D915 is, it was one of the initial dual cores from Intel. Basically, it's one step up from a Pentium 4. It was before they became the Core 2 Duos. That's how old it is. My other machine is a low-end Core 2 Duo. It's got a GTS 8400 for graphics card. It's got 1 gigabyte of RAM. It's used for streaming, and it's on XP SP3. I've had my alt logged in. Granted, my alt doesn't get around much. He just sits in a DJ booth and DJs for most of the time. But I've had him logged in for over 140 hours straight. Can't do that on my main, which is a much more powerful machine.
And that's interesting. Are you using Sam to DJ with?
I'm DJing with Sam at the same time on that machine. It's only got 1 gig of RAM on that machine.
Amazing, because Sam has a thoroughly evil reputation.
So, go figure.
What I find amazing about that, Ed, is that your ISP connection stayed up that entire time.
I've got very good net, actually. I'm very lucky that way. I get 25 plus megs down and 5 plus up to the Dallas servers to run in a speed test. And in a year and a half that we've had it, we've had problems like 3 times. Maybe every 6 months we run into a problem.
Yeah, to all the people that are complaining about, using this low-end hardware and this old hardware, you got to realize one thing. Things have gotten so power efficient nowadays that running some of your old hardware actually costs you more money than simply buying new hardware, especially when you take a look at the ROI of the 1 year. Your power bill will easily afford a new computer system because that old system chews up so much power.
Yeah. Another thing to remember, folks, if you're having problems, it might not be the viewer that's the problem, even if the viewer is the only thing that's having a problem. It could be a piece of software that you're running on your machine. We've seen a lot of cases of that.
Machine. It could be a piece of software running on another machine on your network. It could be another piece of software that somebody else is running on another machine on your network that you don't even know what they're doing.
So if we confused everybody now?
Usually the culprit of that unknown piece of software is usually Norton Antivirus or Symantec Antivirus or something of that. Or McAfee.
Okay. Well, one example I'll make here is we had a user who was from Belgium, so they used a Azerty keyboard. So they'd set it to Azerty, and every time they'd, I can't remember the details, I think if they used the delete button to delete something, their keyboard would revert to QWERTY. And it would take a reboot of the machine to fix it. Turned out it was a little app that they were using to stream their iTunes to their smartphone. They got rid of that piece of software and the problem went away. Go figure.
And I have a friend who DJs from the UK, and he occasionally has problems running set, and invariably it shows up as a Firestorm issue, when in reality it's somebody else in the house getting on something. I don't even know what. I'm not sure it matters a whole lot. You know, they get on some bandwidth intensive service, and Firestorm falls over dead. So, you know, if you have other people in the house, you know, and you have problems, it's time to go snooping a little bit.
Fortunately, I sort of plead guilty to that one when I decide to download my TV shows.
And for those of you that are confused, welcome to my world. I spend my life being confused by things that happen here in Second Life, I think.
Yeah, you think we understand how things work?
It's like I told Oz Linden once when I showed him a trick that worked for rezzing people, the changing the group tag thing. His comment was, that shouldn't work. And my response to him was, Oz, I'm not a developer, I don't program, I'm support. I don't know why things work. I quite often don't know how things work. All I do know is what works and what doesn't work.
I was there that day. We almost got Oz to cuss on the air on voice.
And I have met Oz in person. Oz is generally about as laid back a person as you will find, especially as laid back a person as you will find in Boston. So, you know, getting him flustered is a remarkable achievement. And for the record, every Linden, not just Oz, who we've shown that trick to, has said, that shouldn't work. How'd that work?
It is hope. It's all magic. Well, Vitashi, the only explanation I can come up with is this. When you change your group tag, you send a packet of information that you've changed your group tag to the region, and that region sends it back out to everybody, including yourself. So basically, you're doing a sort of a texture refresh when you're changing your tag.
Now, the real question is, does that trick currently work with SSA now? Since
No, it doesn't. At least not in my
the
experience.
bake ovens don't care what group you are.
It still does work for other strange things, though.
So basically, if Second Life is acting weird, especially if things aren't changing that should be, just try changing your group tag and changing it back. It may help, it may not, but it's cheap and it's worth trying.
Sometimes it does, Hope. Yeah, change your group tag is a very simple, easy thing to try. And if it doesn't work, it only takes, 5 seconds to change your group tag, right? It's not like we're telling you clear your cache. Oh, I said that word, didn't I? I should shut up now.
Time for an Ed rant.
You know, Ed, I asked you to sit over there for a reason, but right now I wish I could reach over and slap you one.
Why do you think I sat over here? Anybody here clear their cache on a regular basis? Or have we all learned? Bruno, next time, do you clear your entire cache? Just clear the inventory section of your cache for your specific account.
Now, one thing I have done is to avoid having to clear my cache all the time is I set up a RAM disk and I just have Firestorm use that.
But yeah,
Jack,
people always
you're setting a terrible example.
People always. That was the cure for everything for a long time. Clear your cache and relog. Quite frankly, you're causing yourself lag by clearing your cache.
Unfortunately, it's a little bit of a specialty fix for my case because one thing, my computer runs 24/7 practically, and another thing, I use a Squid proxy, so I already have everything cached into a separate service. So when so if I ever reboot the machine, everything it downloads everything from my local Squid server instead of Linden Labs again.
A lot of the time people attribute the cache clear to what the relog was actually responsible for.
Exactly.
So before you try for any, when you're having an issue, don't clear cache right away. Most of the time it's not related to your cache. Try relogging though. Relogging doesn't take very long and it clears up a lot of stuff. In fact, just last night I was at an event type thing and toward the end I got an IM from the host's partner who said, in the middle of the event, she dropped her keyboard, and then she wasn't able to wasn't able to IM anybody. And we've been communicating with note cards for the past hour. What can we do? And I'm like, I would relog first. And he's like, well, yeah, she hasn't gotten the chance to relog. She was hosting the event, and blah blah blah. And so, we talked for 5 minutes about how she should relog rather than her actually relogging. But eventually she got around to doing it, and sure enough, it fixed this really strange and weird problem. And that's when I get the, oh my gosh, you're a genius stuff. And it's like, no, I'm not a genius. You just relog when something weird happens. And so relogging, it fixes a lot more than you may expect, and don't clear cache and relog. Just relog. You may be surprised that it does exactly what you used to clear cache for. You can always clear cache later if it turns out that is exactly what you had it to do. But if your issue doesn't have to do with textures or inventory, the chances that cache is going to have anything to do with it are extremely slim. Yes, that would be our equivalent would be, hi, this is Firestorm Support English. Have you relogged yet? Demeter, what's your setting in prefs? Firestorm protection, revoke permissions.
Wonder if that's related to the anti-spam as well, actually.
Okay, that wouldn't cause that problem then. If you had revoke on sit, that would do it, or revoke on sit and stand, because then you're basically revoking the animation's permission to animate you as soon as it tries to, and that doesn't do that's not going to be very helpful in most cases.
Preference is Firestorm protection, Jay. Demeter, do you have the anti-spam on? Same tab. That's a strange one then. I'm not sure what to tell you. Unless you've somehow muted that object, I'd be checking my block list. Would be the next step for me. I'd be checking, I'd have my lag meter open and the statistics bar. And next time it happens, keep them up. The next time you go to sit on it and see what you see there. If the region's not running well, okay, if there's a lot of physics lag on the region, as I said, scripts can simply stop running if the physics lag gets too bad. Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, but only if it gets really, really, really horrible. The sim goes to great lengths to make sure that you can still move, even in the presence of other things. But you know, it is possible for sim load to affect movement, but it's got to be just absolutely horrible.
Yeah, because as I said earlier, avatar movement is considered far more important than scripts running.
Yes, scripts are run only in what the server considers spare time. If the server, they have the lowest processing priority. And yes, that's a very good reason to use the client-side AO.
Yeah. Anybody here not use the client-side AO? Just out of curiosity?
I don't use it.
Okay, if there's those of you that don't use it, anybody interested in using it? Here we go. Another plug for a class. Well, I'm actually going to be teaching the AO class today at 2 p.m. It's a built-in animation overrider. No, 2 o'clock this afternoon. You've still got 4 hours and 15 minutes.
Yeah, so here's the explanation for anybody who is not familiar with it. The client-side AO is an animation overrider built into your viewer. It does not have animations in it. That's the part that you do in order to set it up, but you run your animations through the viewer instead of through a HUD. The advantages of this are mostly to cut down on script use, although there are certain things about the AO that are really great. It's more customizable than most HUD-based AOs would be. You can add and remove animations a lot more easily. You can move them around, and you can have them all listed in the same place, so that if you use more than one, you can switch between them with a drop-down rather than having to take one off and put a different one on, and so forth. I love it. Even when I just get a new wearable item that has animations in it, I'll add it to my client-side AO. I'll often create an AO around it, just because I like using it so much. So, yeah, there are a lot of fun things about the AO. And, yeah, you can use the wiki link Jody put into chat, or the class is going to be 2 p.m. SL time today. Yes, you can use the client-side AO as a dance ball too. You will not be able to share dances with other people. You are the only person it can animate, but if all you want is to have a bunch of dances that you can use when you go to a location, then it works really, really well. And in fact, because you can make it so that you're technically sitting while you're dancing, it can be a less laggy form of dancing. And we can explain, or Ed can explain, or whoever else is at the class along with Ed can explain how to do that if you go to the class.
There we go. One more plug for our classes.
Uh-huh.
Yep, Demeter, that's basically what you do.
And yes, griefers, if you're ground sitting, you can't be pushed, which is a bonus. So this will allow you to ground sit while appearing to be moving. The sim thinks you're sitting, well, knows you're sitting, and people viewing you see you dancing.
So, do we have any more questions, folks? You got more questions for us? Go for it, Michael. Throw it out there. Sure. Not necessarily. It can be, Michael, but again, it depends on the type of lag that you're experiencing. And that's where it gets really ugly. Client-side lag is really the only type of lag that you have control over, a lot of control over. Network lag and server-side lag, not so much. Lilana, take care.
And in my case, there's really nothing much I could do when my voice was breaking up earlier. It's just that Wi-Fi connections are, they're tricky.
But yeah, Michael, definitely come out to our quick prefs and lag class, or grab the class material. The class is over on the corner here. It's pretty easy to find. Just look for the big bird. Grab the class notes and read them over, and you can check it out. Otherwise, we do have a quick prefs and lag class going on tomorrow at 4 p.m. Not here at the junkyard class.
You can always check the class schedule for locations and times for all of our classes. fact, tomorrow we've got both the basic troubleshooting and the quick pref slag class.
Rowan, good question. No, but they help. The more you know. Okay, so how do we pick our support team members? This is the way it works. Basically, we watch the support groups. The leads and the other support team members watch their respective groups. And we watch for people who give the right answers, who have the right attitude, who can admit when they're wrong, and who are obviously crazy enough to keep helping people for a long period of time. Yes, I did say
without
crazy.
just going completely snarky on top of them.
Yeah. Quite often we get people say, how can I join the support team? And they all get the same answer. Help out in the group and be patient. And you may get asked to join, but you may not. Don't take it bad if you don't get asked. We have a very eclectic team, let's put it that way. Our support team members come from basically every walk of life, both in RL and SL. And our biggest strength, honesty, is our diversity. Some people know networking really well, some people know other things really well, and then there's people like me that just know, hey, this person knows what they're talking. Are you not in the Firestorm support group, Grit?
The link in chat for anybody who wants to join. That's a lot faster than sending an invitation.
Yeah.
So on the topic of folks becoming support, I'd like to share my own story. So, I was in the Phoenix group. It was still Phoenix at the time for a long time, and before then the Emerald group, and that. Well, okay, let me back up a little more. I don't have any technical background at all. None whatsoever. I went to computer camp when I was like 13. That's about it. Aside from that, I have no computer science background, no tech support experience. Everything I learned from watching the groups. Everything. No place else. I lurked. I watched what answers people were giving. And when there wasn't somebody else around giving those answers, I'd jump in and I'd do it myself. I did that for a good 2 years if you include the Emerald group and as well as the Phoenix group. Before I got that I am from Ed saying, "How crazy are you?" It will take a long time for people to, it may take a long time for you to build up the kind of knowledge or build up the name recognition so that people notice that you're helping and that you know what you're talking about. People are not always likely to come in and lurk. They're not always likely to come in and help. They're often more likely to come in and need help, or in some cases to want to vent. But yeah, that's just that's my story. That's my example. There's no sign up for doing Firestorm support. It's a matter of you putting in the time, putting in the effort, and putting in the, generating the knowledge and showing how helpful you are, and eventually you may get noticed. As for mobile, I think Ed wanted to answer that.
No, I don't want to answer the mobile. I just want to add one thing about your particular case. Letta was on my radar and being watched by me. Her chat, I wasn't stalking her in Second Life and following her around, okay? Don't get that idea. But I was watching her chat, and I scanned the group chat. I'll run through it and see who's been on. But I watched her for 6 months before she got the IM from me. So
yeah,
patience.
Patience and persistence. Persistence is a big one, because a lot of the time people will end up on our to watch list once, and then they vanish for months at a time, and then we're like, okay, well, they're not that dedicated, and they get taken off the list. Then they'll show up again, and we'll be like, yeah, they're really helpful when they're around, and then they'll vanish for months. It's like, why are you doing this? And we can't have people on the team who are likely to do that. Sometimes they end up doing that anyway, and that's usually okay. But if we already know, then that's not going to happen. Those people will not be asked onto the team. As for this mobile question, I get to look up my blog post again. But mobile apps are a different development process from the kind that our team already does. There is no Firestorm mobile, except for what you may have seen a video about on April 1st last year. There is no Firestorm mobile. There is unlikely to be a Firestorm mobile. There are other development teams, or at least developers, who create applications for mobile devices, and ours is not one of them. I can add at this point in time, except that might make it sound as though there are expectations of that changing. Well, here's the thing. I'll find my wiki link, my blog link. But the thing is, we've got a niche, and that niche is people who want a full-featured Second Life viewer for Mac OS X, Windows, and Linux. Those are the operating systems we support. Mobile devices, for the most part, don't use those. It would be an entirely different project to do to try and support those and develop for them at the same time. And there are already teams that have that niche. There isn't any particular reason to believe that Firestorm would be able to do it any better than they can. Just because we're large, just because we're popular, doesn't mean we're going to be better at everything. So Android has Lumia, or Lumaya. I'm not really sure how that's pronounced. The iDevices have Pocket Metaverse. And I'll go ahead and find that blog.
Yeah, and the Lumina and the Pocket Metaverse, those programs were written from the ground up, from scratch, because of those two devices. Not only are they completely different OSs, but they're also completely different CPU architecture. So, they had to rewrite those from ground up, and also to take into account the very, 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 very limited resources they have there. And most of them just do chat and mostly other things, but they can't do real-time 3D like a desktop version can. Now, Lumina, the way I understand it, takes pretty good snapshots at time, unless that's changed.
Yeah, Lumaya actually does fairly well at being a real-time 3D viewer if you have a sufficiently powerful machine to run it on. I have a first-generation Google Nexus 7 tablet, and it works very well there, but that's also, as Android devices go, that is also a high-end device. Yes, Lumia is an actual 3D viewer.
What you can do, the closest you're going to come to using Firestorm on a mobile device is to connect remotely. You'll need to have your computer at home on, something that has Firestorm on it, and you can use your mobile device with TeamViewer or something similar to connect to your computer at home and use Firestorm on the go. It's not going to be the same kind of experience. You're basically making it so that you're viewing Firestorm while your computer is doing all the work of running it. So, yeah, I'm not sure if any of the mobile apps are free.
Lumia is not, but it's a one-time $2.99 payment, and that's chicken feed.
And the nice thing about it is that if you have cash, you can pick up a one of those cash cards at a local store, and you can deposit that into Google Play, so you can actually purchase it without having to sign over all your personal info. You can buy it with cash, because I actually done it.
I don't think Pocket Metaverse has a free version anymore, but it's also like $2 or $3. From what I believe.
Yeah, I don't think it's a 3D viewer, though.
No, it's not. I think Lumia is the only one. The only mobile.
Yay for Android!
And yay for Android hardware that has actual graphics processors in it. All of this just points out how remarkable an achievement Lumia truly is. Writing a 3D viewer from the ground up for Second Life on a restricted platform like that is actually a hell of an achievement. I am really impressed with it.
So, any more questions, folks, or are we going to sort of wrap this up?
Wow.
And I'm about to take off here. I need to get back to driving the truck.
Yeah, and there's a tuna fish sandwich calling my name.
And here's that link, by the way. Here's that link, by the way. It addresses the question about and a couple of other things actually. It's kind of a long post, but eventually I'll get to the some commentary on the idea of Firestorm Mobile, and in fact, the other one we sometimes get asked about: will there ever be a Firestorm Lite? And the answer to that is, it already exists. It's the Linden viewer.
Michael, I prefer duct tape. Well, duct tape, hot glue gun. What more do you need? Oh, crazy glue. That's all you really need in your toolkit, right?
Yeah, me and duct tape don't quite get along. You know how duct tape sticks to fur?
Hot glue guns are worse for you, actually.
No, hot glue guns are good because the fur acts like an insulation, and all I have to do is just wait for it to cool off. Then it just cut off the piece of fur that I can grow back.
I don't want to imagine what tech looks like shaved.
Okay. On that note, I think we should wrap this up. We are on a G region, and we don't want tech being shaved on the stage. I want to thank you all for taking the time to come out. I hope it was a little bit of fun and a little bit informative. And thank you all for using Firestorm. You all are the reason that Firestorm is as popular as it is.
Thanks, everybody.
Well, that went well, I think. You're all quite welcome. I used to have trouble with people thanking me for doing what I do because I do it for selfish reasons, but I've got over that.
KT1, I just want to make a comment. I see that 6502 in your names. I actually programmed that at one time.
Thanks, Letta.
There was a 6502 Heathkit in high school, and I actually did a little bit of machine programming on it. Yeah, that's the one thing I've never done as assembler. But I've done machine code, which is actually one step lower than that. Now everything nowadays is in higher level languages like C++ is currently the most popular one for serious programs.